The war in Ukraine has delivered a shock to global energy market. Now the planet is facing a deeper crisis, a short of food. Hi, my name is Gio. Hope you're doing well. In today's episode, let's see why everyone is talking about the food shortages, what is causing it, and how it will affect us. Here's everything you need to know. Why the food shortages? A significant portion of the world's wheat, corn, and barley is trapped in Russia and Ukraine because of the war. At the same time, an even larger portion of the world's fertilizer is stuck in Russia and Belarus. The result is that global food and fertilizer prices are soaring. Since the invasion, wheat prices have increased by 21%, barley by 33%, and some fertilizer by more than 40%. Since the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine has regained its position as one of the most important breadbasket of the world. More than 55% of Ukrainians' land area is farmable, and it has some of the most productive soil in the world. Ukraine produces about 4% of global corn and wheat supplies, 7% of barley, and 31% of sunflower oil. Around one quarter of global wheat exports come from Ukraine and Russia. They are the source of nearly two-thirds of traded sunflower oil, with Ukraine alone accounting for half of global exports. Food crises are bad for everyone, but they are devastating for the poorest and most vulnerable people. This is because of two reasons. First, the world's poorest countries tend to be food importing countries. Second, food accounts for at least half of the total expenditure of households in the low-income countries. Price of these goods had already been trending upwards due to the global inflation and shortages caused by COVID-19, as well as the rise in gas prices that increased in cost of shipping. Are Russia and Ukraine still exporting food? Many Ukrainian farmers have gone to the front lines to fight, and the farm they left are being destroyed by Russia. That means Ukrainian spring harvest of barley, corn, and other seeds will be less than half of the 2021 level. The agriculture minister says Ukraine banned exports of wheat and other food last month to secure its own wartime supplies, but at this point it can't really export anyway. Russian warships are blocking access to Black Sea ports and have bombed at least 3 civilian ships carrying Ukrainian goods. Russia's own ability to export, meanwhile, had been reduced by sanctions. Which countries are most reliant on food imports from Ukraine and Russia? The potential impact of reduced food output from Ukraine and Russia will not be felt equal everywhere. Some of the most vulnerable are countries that import directly from these countries. Food prices are rising, which means that all countries that are net importers of these commodities could feel significant impact. We can see, for example, that many countries across the Middle East and North Africa rely heavily on wheat imports from Ukraine and Russia. They supply more than two-thirds of imports in Egypt, Libya, and Lebanon. For maize, the reliance on Ukrainian and Russia has a larger geographical reach with countries across East Asia. Can the loss of food be made up? While the two countries generate about 30% of the world's exports wheat, that's still less than 1% of the world's total wheat. And other producers such as India grew more wheat last fall in anticipation of a Black Sea conflict. But it takes time for recipient countries to rearrange their supply chain and place orders with the new sources. And the supply of labor to deliver those orders is running short, as Russian and Ukrainian together make up about 15% of the world's shipping workforce. How bad will Europe face food shortages? Food supply is not at stake in EU despite the ongoing war in Ukraine, but soaring food prices may mean low-income households struggle to access it, according to the European Commission's new communication of food security. The EU has been a key driving partner of different agri-food products with both Russia and Ukraine. According to a report by the European Parliament, before the war, the EU sent 3.7% of its overall exports in agri-food to the Russian Federation, and about 1.4% of its imports came from Russia. While EU agri-exports include soybeans, cocoa beans, oilseeds, and honey, imports from Russia included oilseeds, wheat, feed ingredients, and fertilizer for farming. Meanwhile, Ukraine accounts for 36% of imports of cereals to the European Union and 16% of oilseeds. In turn, the EU exports more than 3 billion euros of agri-food products to Ukraine in 2021. According to the European Commission, the bloc can easily stable the instability caused by the war in Ukraine. The EU is largely self-sufficient for key agriculture products, being a main wheat and barley export, and largely able to cover its consumption for other stable crops such as maize or sugar, and also larger self-sufficient for animal products including dairy and meat, with the notable exception of seafood. However, while stable food supply in Europe is not jeopardized, these vulnerabilities together with high input costs may drive on food to the point where they become inaccessible for the use for people. This is especially for households with children and low-income households, as well as refugees from Ukraine. How bad will the US face food shortages? To understand what might be coming to the US, we first need to understand what changes in the food economy are already at play. Before the pandemic, American food prices changes little from month to month, sometimes rising or falling by a fraction of a percent. Then the virus hit. The prices of food eaten at home shot up 2.5% in 1 month. Prices went up but never returns to their pre-pandemic level, and starting in December 2020, prices began steadily rise. In the past year, Americans have seen an average increase of 1% each month. The rising cost of energy has lifted food prices for two reasons. With global supply lines, higher cost for moving goods pushes up food prices. But the rise in natural gas in particularly plays a special role in agriculture. It is a key ingredient in making fertilizer. The price of fertilizer in US essentially doubled between the summer of 2020 and the end of 2021. The United States Department of Agriculture released an update to its food price outlook for 2022 and found that nearly everything, whether it comes from the grocery store or restaurants, is going up in price. And yes, that's on top of the price increases consumers have already been forced to endure in the last year. All food prices are now predicted to increase between 4.5% and 5.5%, in the Economic Research Service explained in the March report. While the overall increase is alarming, a closer look at various food categories shows just how expensive a shopper can expect items to get, according to the United States Department of Agriculture. As for takeout or dinner-in menus, these prices are predicted to go up between 5.5% and 6.5% for the remaining of this year. Additionally, food prices climbed 7.9% for the year ending in February 2020. What can be done? The Biden administration said it's in talk with Canada and European countries to ship more food aid to hungry countries and help farmers boost crop yields. France is considering food vouchers for its citizens, while the United Kingdom has cut gas and diesel taxes to ease pressure on deliveries. China, meanwhile, has been buying US soybeans, corn, and other supplies. And the complexity of the global supply chain make it difficult to determine whether any particular price is rising because of the war or the pandemic or some other causes. When will things get better? It all depends on the length of the war and climate condition in the world's major cereal production areas. China is anticipating its worst wheat crop in history, and the US Midwest is seeing very dry conditions. While Australia and India are expecting bumper crops. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell, and check out all the links in the description down below. See you in the next video.